The Reckoning of Omega's Legacy. Chapter 1. The Vanished Scientist. The world is on the brink of disaster. An alarming number of scientists have gone missing in the last few months, and no one knows why. The government fears sabotage, while others whisper of extraterrestrial interference. No one knows for sure, but one thing is certain: the world needs a savior. Dr. Sarah Park is one of the best scientists in the world. She's also one of the only ones left. She's been tasked by the government to investigate the disappearances, and she's been given access to some of the most advanced technology available. But she knows that time is running out. As she arrives at her laboratory, Dr. Park is greeted by one of her colleagues with a strange look on his face. He seems scared, and his hands are trembling. He tells her that another scientist has gone missing, and this time, it's personal. It's her mentor, Dr. Jameson. Dr. Park is stunned. Dr. Jameson was like a father to her, and he was the one who inspired her to become a scientist in the first place. She immediately starts to investigate, combing through Dr. Jameson's notes and data. But the more she delves into his research, the more she realizes that there's something off about it. She discovers that Dr. Jameson was working on something called the Chronos Project, a revolutionary new technology that could potentially change the future of the world as we know it. But as she digs deeper, she discovers that there are powerful forces at play that are eager to keep the Chronos Project a secret. Dr. Park embarks on a dangerous journey to unravel the mystery of the Chronos Project and save the missing scientists. But as she delves deeper into the unknown, she finds herself navigating a world of lies, betrayal, and danger. Dr. Park races against time to find the vanished scientist before it's too late. Will she be able to unravel the mystery in time, or will she fall victim to the very forces she's trying to overcome? Only time will tell. Chapter 2. The Rebel Uprising. Dr. Park finds a clue in Dr. Jameson's research that leads her to believe that the missing scientists have been taken to a remote location in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. She knows that she must act fast, so she gathers a team of elite scientists and mercenaries to investigate. As they enter the rainforest, they are immediately met with resistance. The rebel forces guarding the area are heavily armed and determined to stop Dr. Park and her team from discovering their secrets. But Dr. Park knows the stakes are too high to turn back now. The team pushes forward, navigating treacherous terrain and deadly wildlife. As they get closer to the rebel base, the tension grows thick. Dr. Park knows that they are walking into a trap, but she's determined to rescue the missing scientists. The team reaches the base in the dead of night, using a combination of stealth and brute force to take out the guards. As they enter the compound, they find themselves in the middle of a full-scale firefight. Explosions rip through the air as shots are exchanged. Dr. Park and her team make their way through the chaotic scene, dodging bullets and narrowly avoiding death at every turn. They finally reach the holding cells, where they find the missing scientists in a state of shock and despair. But before they can secure the prisoners, the rebels launch a counterattack. The team is forced to fight their way out, blasting their way through waves of heavily armed rebels. Their escape is precarious, with several members of the team sustaining injuries along the way. As they flee through the jungle, they realize that the rebels are hot on their tail. Dr. Park knows that they need backup, and she calls in a favor from an old friend, a pilot with a reputation for being able to fly in and out of the most dangerous situations. The team manages to hold off the rebel forces until the helicopter arrives. They board the chopper just as the rebels close in, the sound of gunfire and explosions echoing through the dense rainforest. As they speed towards safety, Dr. Park can't shake the feeling that they've only scratched the surface of a much larger conspiracy. She knows that the rebels are just a small cog in a much larger machine. But for now, they've rescued the missing scientists and have dealt a major blow to their enemies. Little does Dr. Park know, she's about to uncover a shocking truth that will shake the very foundations of her world. Chapter 3. The time-bending prototype. Dr. Park and her team return to their laboratory with the rescued scientists, but they soon realize that something is wrong. One of the scientists, Dr. Patel, is acting strangely. He's jittery and paranoid, and he keeps muttering about time-bending technology. Dr. Park takes a closer look at Dr. Patel's research and discovers that he was working on a secret project that could change the very fabric of time itself. She realizes that the project is linked to the Chronos project that Dr. Jameson was working on before he disappeared. As Dr. Park and her team delve deeper into the project, they discover that Dr. Patel has been experimenting with a time-bending prototype that could potentially allow them to travel through time. But the risks are enormous. One small mistake could have catastrophic consequences. Despite the risks, Dr. Park can't resist the lure of time travel. She convinces her team to help her test the prototype, and they prepare for their journey through time. They enter the time machine, with Dr. Park at the controls. As they travel through time, they watch in awe as history unfolds before their eyes. They witness the French Revolution, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and even the birth of the universe itself. But as they prepare to return to the present, something goes horribly wrong. The time machine malfunctions, and they find themselves hurtling through time uncontrollably. They witness the rise and fall of civilizations, the extinction of species, and the end of the world itself. They are caught in a never-ending loop of time, unable to escape. Dr. Park realizes that they must find a way to repair the time machine and return to the present before it's too late. She and her team work frantically to repair the machine, fighting against the relentless flow of time. As they finally manage to stabilize the time machine, they return to the laboratory, shaken by their experience. They realize that time travel is not something to be taken lightly, and that the risks are simply too great. With a newfound respect for the flow of time, Dr. Park and her team make a decision to destroy the time-bending prototype to prevent anyone from ever attempting to use it again. But as they are about to destroy the prototype, they discover something even more shocking, evidence of a greater conspiracy connecting the time experiment to a dark web of corruption and greed. Dr. Park knows that the real fight has just begun. She knows that she and her team are up against powerful forces, and that there's no telling what they'll do to stop her. But Dr. Park is determined to uncover the truth, no matter what the cost. Chapter 4. The horrifying truth. Dr. Park and her team start to unravel the shocking truth behind the Chronos project and the time-bending prototype. They discover that a powerful organization, known only as the Syndicate, has been funding the research behind the projects in order to gain control over the very fabric of time. Dr. Park realizes that she stumbled upon something much bigger than she ever suspected, something that could have disastrous consequences for the entire world. She knows that she must put a stop to the Syndicate's plans before it's too late. With the help of her team, Dr. Park uncovers a series of clues that lead her to the Syndicate's headquarters. The building is heavily guarded, but drive. Park and her team are determined to sneak inside and find out more about the organization's plans. As they make their way through the building, they discover the horrors that the Syndicate has been hiding. They find evidence of human experimentation, mind control, and even a plan to unleash a deadly virus on the world. Dr. Park is horrified by what she has discovered, but she knows that she must push forward. She finally makes her way to the heart of the Syndicate's base, where she confronts the organization's enigmatic leader, a man known only as the Director. The Director reveals his plan to use the Chronos project and the time-bending prototype to create a world where he and his followers can control time itself. His ultimate goal is power and domination over the entire planet, and nothing will stop him. Dr. Park knows that the Director must be stopped at any cost. She engages in a fierce battle with him, using all of her scientific knowledge and fighting skills to gain the upper hand. As the fight rages on, Dr. Park realizes that she has one last card to play. She activates the time-bending prototype one final time, using it to freeze time and trap the Director in an endless loop. She knows that it's a dangerous move, but she's willing to risk everything to save the world. With the Director trapped in time, Dr. Park and her team work to dismantle the syndicate and destroy all evidence of their atrocities. They know that it's a long road ahead, but they're determined to do everything in their power to ensure that the world is safe from the syndicate's grasp. As Dr. Park surveys the ruins of the syndicate's headquarters, she realizes that the world is safe once again. But she also knows that there will always be powerful forces lurking in the darkness, waiting to strike. And when they do, she'll be ready to face them head-on. Chapter 5. The Betrayal. Dr. Park and her team have been working tirelessly to dismantle the syndicate and prevent them from getting their hands on the Chronos project and the time-bending prototype. But just when they think they've won, they uncover a betrayal that cuts deep. One of Dr. Park's team members, Dr. Ramirez, has been secretly working for the syndicate all along. He's been feeding them information about their operations and sabotaging their efforts to stop the organization. Dr. Park is devastated by the betrayal, but she knows that she can't let it stop her. She must put her trust in the remaining members of her team and carry on with the fight against the syndicate. As they work to regroup and strengthen their efforts, they receive a shocking message from an unexpected source, Dr. Jameson, the scientist who disappeared at the beginning of their mission. Dr. Jameson reveals that he's been working behind the scenes to gather information on the syndicate and their motives. He knows that he's putting himself in danger by reaching out to Dr. Park, but he believes that it's a risk worth taking. Dr. Park and her team meet with Dr. Jameson in a secret location, where he reveals the full scope of the syndicate's plans. They discover that the organization's reach is far wider than they ever imagined, with members in positions of power all over the world. Dr. Jameson also reveals that the syndicate has developed a new form of technology that could give them the power to control the minds of people all over the globe. If they succeed in deploying the technology, it could be the end of freedom and autonomy as we know it. Dr. Park knows that they must act fast to stop the syndicate once and for all. With the help of Dr. Jameson and her remaining team members, she hatches a plan to take down the organization from the inside out. They infiltrate the syndicate's main base of operations and set about planting evidence that will implicate key members of the organization. It's a dangerous mission, with the syndicate's loyal guards and soldiers lurking around every corner. As the plan comes to fruition, Dr. Park and her team prepare to make their escape. But just as they're about to leave, they're confronted by Dr. Ramirez, who reveals that he's been waiting for them all along. A fierce battle ensues, with Dr. Ramirez and his allies fighting against Dr. Park and her team. The fight is brutal, with both sides sustaining heavy losses. In the end, it's Dr. Park who emerges victorious, taking down Dr. Ramirez in a final showdown. But the cost is great. Several members of her team have been lost, and Dr. Park herself has been gravely injured. As she's taken away on a stretcher, Dr. Park realizes that the fight against the syndicate is far from over. But she's determined to keep going, no matter what the cost. She knows that the world is depending on her to stop the syndicate and prevent them from taking over the planet. As she fades into unconsciousness, she knows that the fight for freedom and autonomy is just beginning. And she's ready to face it head-on, no matter what challenges come her way. Chapter 6. The Final Showdown. Dr. Park awakens in a hospital bed, surrounded by her remaining team members. She's still recovering from her injuries, but she knows that she can't rest for long. The syndicate is still out there, and they won't stop until they achieve their goals. As she begins to regain her strength, Dr. Park and her team are confronted by a surprising ally, a group of resistance fighters who have been working against the syndicate for years. They know the ins and outs of the syndicate's operations and are eager to help Dr. Park take them down. Together, they hatch a plan to infiltrate the syndicate's main headquarters and take down their leader, the enigmatic director himself. It's a daunting task, but Dr. Park knows that it's the only way to stop the syndicate once and for all. The team prepares for their final mission, knowing that they may not come back alive. They gear up with the latest technology and weapons, preparing for a fierce battle against the syndicate's most loyal soldiers and guards. As they make their way through the syndicate's base, they're confronted by the director's personal bodyguard, a formidable woman with enhanced strength and agility. The fight is intense, with both sides trading blows and using every trick in the book. Eventually, Dr. Park and her team emerge victorious, taking down the bodyguard and making their way into the director's inner sanctum. They confront the director himself, who's been expecting them. The director reveals that he's taken control of the time-bending prototype and has been using it to alter time in his favor. He's created a world where the syndicate rules over everyone else, and he knows that he'll stop at nothing to maintain that power. As the battle rages on, Dr. Park realizes what she must do. She overloads the time-bending prototype, creating a massive explosion that tears a hole in the fabric of time itself. The explosion sends Dr. Park, her team, and the director hurtling through time and space. Dr. Park and her team awake in a strange and unfamiliar place, a world that's been altered by their use of the time-bending prototype. They realize that they've been given a second chance to make things right, but they know that the syndicate will be coming for them. With this newfound knowledge, Dr. Park and her team work tirelessly to dismantle the syndicate's operations and stop them from taking control of time. They race against the clock, knowing that the syndicate's power and resources are seemingly endless. In a final showdown, Dr. Park and her team confront the director once and for all. The battle is intense, with both sides trading blows and using every trick in the book. In the end, it's Dr. Park who emerges victorious, taking down the director and putting an end to the syndicate's reign of terror. With the world saved, Dr. Park and her team take a moment to rest and reflect on their journey. Dr. Park realizes that the fight for freedom and autonomy is never truly over. But she also knows that they've taken a crucial step forward in the battle against those who would use science and technology for their own selfish gains. As they prepare to return to their own time, Dr. Park realizes that her team has become like family to her. They've faced incredible challenges together, and they've come out stronger for it. And as they step back into their own time, Dr. Park knows that whatever the future may hold, she's ready to face it head-on, with science and courage as her guiding lights. Chapter 7. The legacy of Omega. Years have passed since Dr. Park and her team stopped the syndicate from taking control of time. The world has changed, and science and technology have advanced at an unprecedented pace. Dr. Park has spent the intervening years continuing her work in science and technology, determined to use her knowledge for the betterment of humanity. She's also worked tirelessly to track down and shut down any remnants of the syndicate that might still be out there. One day, she's contacted by a group of scientists who claim to have discovered something incredible, a device that bears a striking resemblance to the time-bending prototype that Dr. Park and her team used to defeat the syndicate. The scientists call the device Omega, and they believe that it could unlock a new era of human understanding and progress. But they also know that it's dangerous in the wrong hands, which is why they've come to Dr. Park for her help. Dr. Park is hesitant to get involved at first, but something about the device and its potential draws her in. She agrees to join the scientists and help them unlock the secrets of Omega, knowing that it could lead to a brighter future for all of humanity. Together, they work to uncover the device's secrets and potential applications. They discover that Omega is capable of bending time and space in a way that's never been possible before, allowing for unprecedented advances in science and technology. But they also discover that Omega is coveted by powerful and shadowy figures who will stop at nothing to get their hands on it. Dr. Park and the scientists know that they must keep Omega safe at all costs, but they also know that the fight will be difficult. As they work to keep Omega out of the wrong hands, they're confronted by a series of challenges, both personal and political. Dr. Park is forced to confront the demons of her past, and she realizes that she can't fight this fight alone. She reaches out to her former team members, as well as new allies who share in her vision of a better, brighter future. Together, they join forces to keep Omega out of reach of those who would use it for their own selfish motivations. In the end, they succeed. Omega is kept out of the hands of those who would misuse it, and the world is transformed by its incredible power. Science and technology advance at an unprecedented pace, ushering in a new era of human progress and discovery. Dr. Park realizes that the fight for freedom and autonomy is ongoing, but she's grateful for the chance to use her knowledge and expertise for good. She knows that, no matter what the future may hold, she and her allies will be ready to face it head-on, with science and courage as their guiding lights. And as she looks out at the world that she's helped to shape, Dr. Park realizes that the legacy of Omega is the legacy of all those who have fought for a better world, and who will continue to do so for generations to come.